The next thing you want to do is prep your work area. Since we're going to be filling holes, you not only have to prep the front side, but you got to prep the back side too. You want to make sure you clean your work area on both sides before you get started because you want everything to stick right. I personally like using thinner on bare plastic. You can't use thinner on most plastics though. It definitely works for this. You want to try to reinforce the holes so you're not just filling it up with a glue or a filler. It'll just fall out. I like to use some fiberglass tape. This stuff right here you can get at Home Depot. Don't need anything crazy for this. You're just going to cut off a piece and start sticking it to each individual part, and I'll tell you what to do next. You want it to look something like this. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to flip it over and we're going to tape up the front side because you don't want none of your filler to just gunk over your work area. When you're done, it should look a little something like this. You don't have to be fancy with it, just cover the holes. I personally like SEM products. This right here is the multi-repair plastic. This is good for almost any plastic, flexible or rigid. It works on almost anything. Now, the one drawback to using these products is it does take a special gun that you need to purchase, and it does need the mixing nozzles. If you don't have either, you can just buy the gun, push out the material, and mix it by hand. I don't recommend doing it that. It's way easier to just spend the money and get yourself the right tools. You're gonna open it up, you're gonna crack the top, then you're going to insert the mixing nozzle. Make sure it's tight. You don't want any of that gunk gooking out. You're going to insert that into your gun. Get it ready. You're going to want to get yourself a plastic spreader. Make sure it's clean and doesn't have any edges. You want to get the cleanest possible result with the minimal sanding that you're going to need at the end. It's not going to matter too much because this is on the back side, but for any body work you do, your tools have to be clean. So we're going to take the gun and we're going to squeeze the material into the first portion. You're going to snap the gun in the back. There's a little trigger to stop the flow. And what you want to do with your spreader is squeeze that material all the way into the inside. Make sure you get all the way through. And if you need more material, you're just going to go ahead and squeeze some more out. You're going to need a fair amount. Remember, you are filling a little bit, and this doesn't require too much structural. So if you use a little bit more filler than you need, it's quite all right. Make sure you don't clog up any holes that you do need, because then you're going to have a fun time drilling it out. The stop is a little bit hard. You also don't want the material to go and dry out on you while it's in the nozzle, or you get to buy a new nozzle. It's a one-time use nozzle, so try to get the most out of it your first time. And make sure you squeeze it all inside the areas that you want to repair or fill. And try to get it as smooth as possible. You don't want to have to spend too much time sanding over and maybe even drilling out holes that you don't need to. But if you do, it's all right. Anything can be fixed. And we're going to go just a little bit more, and we're going to do one smooth section all the way around. And if you get it smooth enough, like I said, this is for a guitar. There's a big hole in the back of that guitar, and you probably won't be able to feel the difference when you lay it down, but you also want a really nice good layer when you put it in. That's it. Next tip, make sure you clean all your equipment before you put it away so you can reuse it again and not have to buy another one. All right, so everything is on. You can see it. Is what it looks like right now. Now it says it has about a 7-minute work time. This is Vegas, baby. You can cut that in half. 15 minutes to sand, which I will give it the 15 minutes. And then you can top coat it in 20. I'm going to give it a little bit more time than that. I want to make sure it looks great. So I'm going to show you how to finish this up from the other side as soon as we have everything dried and ready to go. Now we're ready for our skim coat on the face side of putty. I like using Crest Porpoise putty. It sticks to everything, metal, plastic, aluminum. I've never had an adhesion problem. What you want to do is mix yourself up a little bit on a clean surface. I like using an old piece of metal that we cut out of a metal wall at a place I used to work at a long time ago. And then you're going to add a little bit of hardener, not too much, a little less than half the way through, maybe even less than that if you're here in Vegas. And you're going to mix it up again with your spatula or your squeegee, whatever you want to call it. Now, the way that I'm mixing helps alleviate the air bubbles. You don't want any air bubbles in your putty. That way you use less primer and you won't have any holes on the surface that you're working on after you're done sanding. You want to get it as smooth as possible. If you get a little bit of this stuff in holes you don't need, that's fine. This stuff comes out or comes off a little bit easier than the other stuff. But this is what the final product should look like before we do the final sand. Let that dry for about 5 to 10 minutes and I'll get back. All right, we're ready for sanding on the front side of this. Now, I know I told you before that I'm not a big fan, or that we always use DAs, but I'm not a big fan of using DAs for finish work. Finish work should always be finished by hand. This is my favorite part. I am a show-off. That's why I'm a painter. Now, contrary to popular belief, this is the last step for any body man. Body men do not prime. That is a part of the paint department. If you have any questions on that, let me know and we can have a discussion. You want to go in and keep your block smooth and flat. You never want to dig. You never want to push too much pressure, because the more pressure you push, you clog your sandpaper. Now I'm using 120 grit sandpaper because this is putty. When you're doing Bondo, you're going to be somewhere between 40 and 80. I'm using one of my original blocks, DuraBlock. They still make an entire set. Awesome blocks for beginners, for experts. This is all I've ever used in my entire profession.